Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Maurice Benard and Richard Taite's raw talk on addiction and recovery. General Hospital star Maurice Benard, Sonny Corinthos on the ABC show, is becoming increasingly recognized for his work with mental health. This week, he hosted Richard Taite on his State of Mind podcast. The two powerful influencers brought a lot to the table. Read on to find out more. Taite and Maurice. If you don't know, Richard Taite is well known for his expertise in addiction recovery. Also a longtime advocate for mental health, like Maurice Benard, he reaches out to the homeless. On his podcast, Maurice reminded folks that Taite founded two treatment centers, Cliffside Malibu and later, the Carrara Treatment Wellness and Spa. After introducing the fact that he didn't graduate from college, the real-life Sonny Corinthos was assured by Taite that it didn't matter to him. He greeted the podcast host kindly, saying, "Don't worry, I'm completely unscarred by my education." However, the conversation soon moved on to more serious topics. A tough childhood. Taite does a lot of work with fentanyl addicts, and he talked about how he was introduced to drugs. As a kid, he had a difficult time as his dad seemed to be strict and, unlike today, he received beatings. Maurice could relate to that and said that his own dad had a lot of rage. Anyway, one day, Taite told Benard how he used pot to help him feel better. He said, "Progressive addiction." Taite also described to Maurice how he became popular at school, especially in sports. He and his friends ended up doing a lot of drugs. He said, "We're all drug addicts, right? And I ended up losing 25 years to drug addiction." Later, he progressed to smoking an ounce of cocaine every single day. Eventually, he ended up with cracked teeth and claimed he was a mess. Then he spoke about the progression of addiction, explaining, "Once you start smoking cocaine, you're a specialist. You don't really want anything else." But he did, and frequently started using any opiate he could get his hands on, like Xanax, Klonopin, and Vicodin. Later, Maurice Benard asked Richard Taite how he broke the addiction cycle. He explained that he joined AA. Plus, Taite said that it wasn't an easy road. Therapy and behavior change. Taite said to the GH star, "I started going to therapy and I hooked up with this woman, Margie Fetting, and she took me through something called the trans-theoretical model of behavior change." Later, he asked a friend for $1,000 to go to sober living. He finally got there, but it didn't work for him the first time. In fact, he went back 5 or 6 times. As he explained, "With the AA Margie, and with the sober living, it took me a while." These days, probably because he struggled so badly with addiction, the influencer can reach out and help so many other people. When it comes to conversations about addiction, the most powerful voices are often those who have lived it, battled it, and found a way forward. Recently, General Hospital legend Maurice Benard sat down with recovery expert Richard Taite, the founder of Cliffside Malibu and a man who has dedicated his life to helping people climb out of the abyss of substance abuse. Together, their raw talk about addiction was more than just an interview. It was a moment of truth, vulnerability, and hope for countless people watching. Maurice Benard, who is best known for playing mob boss Sonny Corinthos, has always been open about his own struggles with mental health, specifically bipolar disorder. Over the years, he's used his platform to strip away the shame surrounding mental illness, encouraging fans to speak up and seek help. Richard Taite, meanwhile, has built his reputation by redefining addiction recovery, focusing not just on abstinence, but on addressing the trauma, pain, and emotional voids that lead people into the arms of drugs and alcohol in the first place. So, when these two men sat down together, what unfolded was less of an interview and more of a shared confessional. Addiction, the unseen enemy. Maurice opened the conversation by admitting something that countless families in America already know too well. Addiction doesn't discriminate. It affects the wealthy and the poor, celebrities and everyday workers, the strong-willed and the vulnerable. What makes it particularly brutal is its ability to sneak into someone's life under the guise of comfort, control, or even fun, before it consumes everything. Richard nodded in agreement, noting that people often misunderstand addiction as simply bad behavior, or a lack of willpower. In reality, addiction is an illness, one that rewires the brain and thrives on secrecy, shame, and self-destruction. For someone in its grip, logic is no longer enough. Telling an addict to just stop is like telling someone with pneumonia to just breathe. Their shared perspective created a sobering moment. Addiction isn't just a private struggle, it's a societal one, and ignoring it only fuels its strength. The role of trauma. What made their talk particularly powerful was the emphasis on trauma. Richard explained that behind nearly every case of addiction, there is an untreated wound, childhood abuse, neglect, abandonment, grief, or even the silent burden of perfectionism. People who turn to substances often aren't chasing a high as much as they're chasing relief. Maurice related deeply to this idea. Though his personal struggles centered more on mental health than substance abuse, he recognized the same cycle of pain. You're trying to numb it, trying to run from it, he reflected. But it always catches up with you. That acknowledgement, that addiction is often a symptom rather than the disease itself, was a turning point in the conversation. For many watching, it reframed their understanding of what their loved ones might be going through. Breaking the stigma. One of the most raw and emotional parts of their talk came when Maurice pressed Richard on why society continues to treat addiction with such judgment. If someone has cancer, communities rally around them. But if someone is addicted to opioids, alcohol, or meth, they're often shamed, shunned, or dismissed. Richard didn't mince words. Stigma kills, he said. It keeps people in the shadows, afraid to ask for help. Maurice agreed, pointing out how many actors and musicians have quietly lost their lives because they felt unable to speak openly about their struggles. Fame, he said, often compounds the problem. The pressure to maintain an image of strength, success, and perfection can drive people deeper into secrecy, where addiction stressed the importance of sharing stories. Vulnerability, they said, isn't weakness, it's freedom. By speaking out, you break the cycle of silence and offer others a lifeline. Finding a path forward. Of course, talk alone doesn't end addiction. Recovery requires action, persistence, and often, professional help. Richard shared how his work at Cliffside Malibu goes beyond detox. His team helps clients identify the root of their pain, whether through therapy, family counseling, or holistic healing. The goal isn't just sobriety, it's building a life worth staying sober for. Maurice added that healing is never a straight line. Setbacks happen. Relapses happen. But every day of progress is a victory. He urged people not to give up on their loved ones, even when the battle seems impossible. For both men, faith, whether in God, family, or simply in the process of recovery, was a central theme. Richard pointed out that addicts often lack hope, and one of the most powerful things anyone can do is simply hold hope for them until they can hold it for themselves. Fans react. This saved my life. As soon as the talk aired, the response from fans was overwhelming. Messages poured in from people who felt seen for the first time, from parents who finally understood their child's behavior, and from recovering addicts who said the conversation gave them strength to keep going. One fan wrote, "I've been sober for 3 years, but hearing Maurice and Richard speak reminded me why I stay sober. Thank you for reminding us we're not alone." Another admitted, "I was using this morning, but after watching this, I flushed the rest. I want to try again." These testimonies underline the very reason conversations like this matter. Sometimes, all it takes is hearing someone else's raw honesty to spark change. Maurice Benard's ongoing mission. For Maurice, this talk wasn't a one-off. His State of Mind series has become a vital platform for tackling tough issues like depression, bipolar disorder, grief, and now addiction. He continues to use his platform not just as an actor, but as a mental health advocate determined to dismantle stigma. And by bringing in experts like Richard Taite, he bridges the gap between personal experience and professional knowledge, creating a space where healing feels possible. A message of hope. As their conversation drew to a close, Maurice and Richard circled back to one central theme: hope. Addiction may be ruthless, but it is not unbeatable. With support, compassion, and the right tools, recovery is possible. Richard summed it up best: addiction is not who you are. It's something that happened to you. And with the right help, you can reclaim your life. Maurice smiled and added, "If you're struggling, know this: you're not broken. You're human. And there's always a way forward." Final thoughts. The raw talk between Maurice Benard and Richard Taite wasn't just about addiction. It was about humanity. It was about stripping away judgment and shame to reveal the vulnerable truth that every person deserves compassion and the chance to heal. For those still in the fight, their words were a reminder that they are not alone. For those who have lost loved ones, It was a call to end stigma so no one else has to suffer in silence. And for fans of Maurice Benard, it was yet another example of why he remains not just a beloved actor, but a true advocate for change. Because in the end, addiction is powerful. But hope, honesty, and connection are even more powerful. And together, they can light the way out of the darkness.